Good morning, everybody. Ben Jones here from Badger from Bronson Coffee Roasters. Today is the 18th day of June in the year 2021. I'm hanging out in my workshop. I have my nice shirt on because I do have to go out into the world today. But I want to talk about, this is kind of a video number 2 in our unofficial and very informal coffee vocabulary series, I guess we'll call it. On Monday we talked about what is strong coffee, strong being defined by the amount of total dissolved solids in the beverage. Today I want to talk about extraction yield, probably a word that if you're a casual coffee consumer, probably something you've never thought of before, not a word that's in your daily lexicon, and that's okay. Something we think about an awful lot in the lab when I'm here doing this stuff. So let's pull out the clipboard and see what extraction yield is. So extraction yield is the very formal word. I actually prefer the phrase soluble yield. That has more to do with how much of the soluble material are we pulling out. So it's in the name and it's there. So again, let's look at what our coffee particle is. So we have a coffee bean. This is a whole roasted bean. It has a bunch of stuff in there. If we grind it, and let's just say we look at it under a microscope, what we're going to see is a bunch of sort of honeycomb-shaped woody structure. And inside of that honeycomb-shaped woody structure, there are a whole bunch of little chemical compounds. Those are our flavoring agents. This is the stuff that tastes like coffee, whatever type of coffee we're drinking. And today I'm drinking our organic Bolivia peaberry. Fantastic. Check out dancinggoats.com, batdwarfcoffee.com, and try some of that. Super good. All right, so we went from whole bean, we're roasted, and we grind it and look at it under magnification. We have a bunch of small little coffee flavor particles, and then the woody structure. Now, the woody structure itself is not soluble in water. If we soak this in, let's just say we put this into a French press, we let that sit and soak for however long we want to let that sit and soak for, because with the French press we have that control. The only things that are going to be dissolved into the water are the little coffee particles, and that will become our beverage. The stuff that stays out is going to be that woody structure. Cool. So far, so good. We mentioned on Monday that if we look at our bean, approximately, I like to just say approximately 1/3 of the weight of this is soluble in water. Hypothetically, let's say that we have 100 grams. Let's see if I can write this backwards. 100 gram of bean. We're going to be able to pull approximately 30 grams out of there. I wouldn't try it because it's probably not going to taste delicious. Typical guidelines for a happy cup of coffee, we're typically going to shoot for between 18 to 22% is our target. If we can get about 18 to 22% of the soluble material out of the ground particle, we're probably going to have a decent cup of coffee. There are some instances with different coffees when you want to go above that. Right now, there's a movement in espresso to push that extraction into the 25–28% range. Awesome if you can do it and it tastes delicious, great. But as far as drip coffee goes, what we're looking for is generally 18 to 22% of what comes out of there. For most people, that's fairly irrelevant because it takes some specialized equipment to measure what your total dissolved solids are. If you know the weight of your beans going in, if you know the mass of your water that you used, and then you can read how much of that beverage is actual coffee solid and how much of that is water, we can then go back and calculate our soluble yield or our extraction yield. Most people don't have that at home, and that's fine. So what I'd like to do is, if we're down below 18%, so anything less than 18% typically is going to be very sour, like a lemon. It might have a cocoa bitterness as an unsweetened baker's cocoa. It'll have a vegetal bitterness, think like greens or chulin and endive. That's a fun one. If it's above 22%, generally it's going to taste primarily like our good old friend, the burnt match. And then chase that burnt match because it was so nasty you reached for the nearest bottle of anything you could drink, but it happens to be rubbing alcohol. Oops, not delicious. Don't do that. It's not going to be good. So that's the practical application for this. If we pull out too much, it tastes bad in this way. If we don't put enough in, it tastes bad in this way. So that's an incredibly light look at soluble yield. If you have a refractometer and you want to measure that, that's super awesome. Go for it. In the early days when coffee researchers were looking into this, they actually used it was really cool. They took just a sample of coffee, weighed that, and then they put it in an oven and they dehydrated it completely, and then they were left with the coffee solids. If you have all the equipment to do that at home, go for it. Try it out. I guess you could put some coffee in your mug and just put it in the oven and let it evaporate. But a real practical way to do it is just take a little coffee, give a little spill, and then when you come back to it after it dries, look at what's left on the table. Those are the coffee solids that are going to be there. So thank you for joining me today on this Friday. It's a quick little look at some of the language we like to use. So next week, when I see Monday, I won't be able to do this. Anyway, next time I see you, I'm going to put together in this really cool, we're going to make a graph. We're going to look at soluble yield, and we're going to look at strength. And we're going to take those two and use that to analyze our brew. All right. Have a great weekend. Take care.